Welcome to RES IT Store Tutorial 20003, Configuring Service Attributes. This tutorial will explain how to configure service attributes within a service. Service attributes are placeholders for information that applies to a specific service only. They can optionally replace the values in various fields in the workflow actions of a service, such as username or computer name. The actual values of these fields are provided when the service is delivered or returned. This allows you to make the service generic. You can use service attributes to provide information that is necessary in a workflow action. For example, if a service is aimed at creating a new user, you can use service attributes as placeholders for user details. They can then be mapped to the parameter in the runbook that creates the user account. To provide a value for a person attribute. For example, if the role of a person changes, you can use a service attribute to change the value of the person attribute that holds this information. To personalize messages that are sent to the actors involved in the delivery of a service. For example, you can use a service attribute to provide the first name of the actor. Let's open our RES IT Store environment. Click on the Service Category section. Select a service and click Edit this service to open the service window. Click on the Attribute tab. Click Add. This opens the Service Attribute window. In the name field, specify the name of the service attribute. In the Type field, specify the service attribute type, in this case text. By default, new service attributes are text-based. You can use this field to select a different attribute type if necessary. Use text-based service attributes as placeholders for a single value. When used in a workflow action, this allows actors to type in a value when requested. In the initial value area, specify the default value for the service attribute. This optional value can be overwritten if a different value is provided when the service is delivered or returned. You can use the following types of initial values. Select text to specify a manual value. You can right-click the field to combine this value with a subscriber attribute, requester attribute, and/or functions. Select People Identifier, People Attribute to base the initial value of an existing People Identifier or People Attribute. Select Service Attribute to base the initial value on a service attribute of another service. The initial value will be the value of this service attribute when the subscriber is subscribed to this service. If the service attribute of the other service is organizational based, the initial value will be based on the organizational context item. The initial value will be the key of this organizational context item. Now let's look at a list-based service attribute. Click Add, and in the Name field, enter the name of your attribute. Select List from the Type field. In the Values area, specify the values of the list. Use list view-based service attributes as placeholders for list values. When used in a workflow action, this allows actors to select a value from a list when requested. In the Display field, specify the format in which the service attribute is shown to the actor. In the Initial Value field, specify the default value for the service attribute. This optional value can be overwritten if a different value is provided when the service is delivered or returned. Select Attribute may not be empty after workflow input from actor to force a mandatory input of the service attribute. When used in Provide Information action, mandatory service attributes are shown in bold in the RES IT Store web portal. Use organization-based service attributes as placeholders for a list of organizational context items. When using a workflow action, this allows actors to select organizational context items from a list when requested. In the Start-In field, specify the main organizational context from which the actor can choose. You can include sub-items of the specified organizational context item. Select Organization to select the initial value from the organizational context tree that you've specified in the Start field. Select this option if you want to use a fixed value. Select Use Organizational Context of Subscriber to let the initial value depend on the classification of the subscriber. The initial value will be the first classification found in the organizational context tree that you specified in the Start-In field. Again, select Attribute may not be empty to make this a mandatory attribute. Use password-based service attributes as a placeholder for a password. When used in a workflow action of a service, this makes it possible for an actor to enter a password when requested. In the Value fields, specify the value of the password. Password-based service attributes are always masked. Input must be specified twice for confirmation. When you use password-based service attributes and invoke runbook action, you can map them to corresponding password parameters. Because the values of password-based service attributes remain encrypted when passed from a service to a runbook in RES Automation Manager, this allows for secure scenarios in which a user or a manager can request a password change for a login account via a runbook. For table-based service attributes, please refer to RES IT Store Tutorial 2000D, Configuring Table-Based Service Attributes. This concludes this RES IT Store tutorial. For additional information on RES IT Store and RES IT Suite, please visit www.ressoftware.com.